Hey everybody, before we start this episode of the Going Yard podcast, we are excited to announce our affiliation with Baseball Lifestyle 101. If you want to help out the podcast and buy something special for that baseball player in your life, check out BL101.com for shirts, hats, book bags, and much, much more. Be sure to use the promo code GYP10 at checkout for 10% off of your order. That's GYP10 for 10% off. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Going Yard podcast, where we go deep into all things baseball. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Tyler. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. Been a little bit, but glad to get back in here and do this again, finally.
Yeah, it's as if you guys are listeners, you know that we've dealt with some computer issues and all kinds of crazy stuff going on, but we finally got our computer back. And just when we get our computer back, for some reason, our main theme song to this show, which is Machine Head by Bush, would not download on Tyler's phone for some reason. And so we had to pull up old YouTube and get that straightened out.
Yeah, we got it figured out, though. We always do.
Yeah, and this is later than normal because we originally got together around 6:30 and then didn't realize that the computer needed to do all this downloading stuff. So we appreciate you guys sticking around and not forgetting about us. We apologize for not having an episode last week. Some stuff came up, but man, just it figures. The end of the season, the most important time of the year for baseball, and we can't record.
It's all right, though. I mean, we got to watch a lot of it, take it all in, and then I think we probably have plenty of stuff to talk about since the last round of a podcast. But I'm excited. This was not the matchup that I had expected in a way, but it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I agree. I expected one of them, but I really thought. Because I'm not even sure what we even talked about the last episode because it feels like forever ago. But the division series matchups and even the wild card games, I thought would be like what we're seeing now with the actual championship series. I thought it would be a closer race in the division, not so many one-sided games. And I was really shocked to see how. I mean, I wasn't shocked that with these championship series, how it was neck and neck. I knew that was going to happen regardless, but I really thought leading up to it, I thought it would be a longer matchup, but or not so one-sided, towards the end. But never, other than that, I mean, it's been exciting. Sorry, I'm losing my words here.
Yeah, no, it was definitely exciting. I thought the Astros and Red Sox series would be a little closer than it was. I think the Boston did a good job of neutralizing the weapons that the Astros have. They kept Alex Bregman in check for the most part. Mm-hmm. And as Bregman goes, the Astros seem to go. I mean, Springer had his series like he does, and he's a heck of a postseason player. Altuve banged up, obviously, so that obviously didn't help their chances. A couple calls, I guess, were questionable, fan interference type thing.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback on that one.
Yeah, great catch by Benintendi in left. Price saves that. So it was very close. It could have went either way, at points in it, but it all comes down to execution. And the Astros didn't get it done as much as the Red Sox, obviously. And the Red Sox didn't win 108 games for nothing. You know what I mean? They really are a solid baseball team, top to bottom.
Now, I know that, and we both know that Houston will be back. I don't think... this year, just because they lost this year, I don't think that means next year they're not going to do well. They're definitely going to be back. They have the pitching, they have the lineup. So, what do you any words on that?
There's still the class of the AL West. There's no doubt about it. The Rangers are in rebuild mode. The Angels just got a new manager. Seattle really wasn't close. Oakland had a good run. They're obviously young, but they're gonna have to make some adjustments and changes as well. So, I really think the series turned a little bit if Dallas Keuchel could have went out and got them a W and pitched a little better. I think the series would have went differently from that point forward. But when you're in the hole like that, it's hard to recover. Losing him as a free agent this year, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. I mean, obviously they have Garrett Cole and Verlander still, and those two guys are impressive. That's for sure. I mean, I know Verlander's last start there in the postseason wasn't what he wanted, but really he made probably 2 bad pitches in the whole game, and they both cost him. So offensively, they're pretty solid.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I don't really see anything they need to do differently, but they're definitely going to have to, I guess, address. They'll have to figure out between what's his name, Keuchel leaving and the other pitcher who's a free agent if they're going to keep one of them. And obviously Keuchel's a lefty, so that helps them out some. So that's probably going to be their biggest need. And I really think that they probably need to find another lefty reliever. Maybe that's a Zach Britton. Maybe that's an Andrew Miller. I don't know if they want to spend like that or if they find somebody else in a trade. But, I would just see those little tweaks there for them, honestly, moving forward.
What about with the Red Sox? We had talked a little bit about before we went into the playoffs, and we were talking about David Price, and he went into this this last series. He went in 0-11 in postseason.
Yeah. As a starter, he definitely had his struggles.
Yeah. So, what do you think of his last couple starts, and do you think his curse is over?
I'm not sure his curse is over because one start really doesn't define a postseason career. This isn't Madison Bumgarner we're talking about who's got a track record. This isn't Randy Johnson or Kurt Schilling, Pedro Martinez. We're not talking about guys like that that just maybe even like Verlander had a bad start. These guys have proven track records. He doesn't have one yet, so he's gonna have to, if he goes out and pitches well in the World Series, Boston Nation isn't going to really care about the previous parts of it, and neither will probably the public opinion at that point. So,
right.
It's kind of like the Kershaw thing. He hasn't got it done either, really. So it's going to be. He's going to, if the Red Sox are going to win this World Series, they're going to need him big time to step up and pitch like he did, even better probably.
You know what I really liked is, now I'm jumping around here. I was going to try to go in some sort of order like we normally try to, but I can say this, that between the Dodgers and the Brewers, with watching both of those teams play, the Brewers, for example, the pitching that they have during that, the way they utilize their pitching, a couple of things, it was kind of weird to see. I think it was Miley was out for one batter, but they were doing some crazy things, but I liked it. I thought it was creative, and you really got to see what their pitching can do. I think their pitching is going to be really good going forward. I think Brewers will be a contender next year, but I feel like with the Dodgers and Red Sox, they're kind of the same way. We saw the same thing with them as well, utilizing their pitching, but they have it on both sides. They have their pitching and they have their hitting, and they can really move it around and do whatever. So that's why I'm really excited about this. Jackie Bradley Jr., for example, he had only 3 hits in the ALCS, but they accounted for 9 RBIs. It's those unlikely heroes, because Jackie Bradley Jr. is usually known more for his arm, not so much behind the plate. So I'm really excited to see that. I don't know if you kind of saw the same thing and what you thought about that.
Yeah, there's always like an unsung hero that steps up. Obviously you got your stars of the game, and then you have the Jackie Bradley Jr.'s, or you have whoever. Obviously you expect Christian Yelich to do what he did. Who expected the Brewers pitcher to hit a home run like he did?
Oh my gosh!
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you always have kind of the unsung stories in a playoffs. But it's to me, the Red Sox and the Dodgers match up pretty consistently in the fact that they're going to trust their starters to get to the 5th or 6th inning before they go to their bullpen. Counsell, a little different, First sign of trouble, 2nd, 3rd inning, he's going right to that bullpen. Yeah, and it goes back to what you saw with Oakland, where you do that bullpen mentality. Well, if your starter can get you to the 5th or 6th, like Buehler did, right, even when he struggled, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He still got to the 5th or 6th inning. That only allows your bullpen to cover 3, maybe 4 innings, as opposed to 7 or 8 innings. Mm-hmm. That's much different. So that whole thing with the Miley thing, I get that you're going to try and force the hand of the other team. And this is the beauty of the National League game in a way, with your pitcher having to hit and having to use guys off the bench and do pinch hits and double switches. So, I get what Counsell was going after, where he wanted to force Roberts to pull his lefties out of, use his lefties and then bring Hader back in or whatever later. But it was just kind of weird. It didn't make a ton of sense to me in a 7-game series like that, considering Miley had pitched really well in the first game he pitched against them. So
yeah, we were pretty shocked about that.
Yes, I mean, I was really shocked. You know what I mean? So for them to go and do that, it just seemed a little odd at the time, at the moment. So, and I really think what happened last night in the game with Hader coming in the way he did seemed a little odd to me. It was a 2-1 game, and he held the line, but then you kind of lose. He only got 3 innings out of him. I think he could have went 4 at that point. I mean, you got to kind of do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. I get that there's a difference between being a starter and a reliever and how many pitches you can throw per se, but you had 2 days off in between. So if they'd advanced, he could have rested today and tomorrow and not had to pitch again until Tuesday. Mm-hmm. I just kind of think that maybe they missed the boat a little bit there. Honestly, I really think I probably would have let Hader hit again in that inning and sent him back out there again. But Jeffers, he's a good pitcher. He just struggled in the postseason. He was that one guy. Unlike Boston, who's had like Joe Kelly, who almost didn't get put on the postseason roster, but then look what he's done now with his opportunities. He came in and been a lights out pitcher for them, basically. Mm-hmm. So the Dodgers, like I said, and Red Sox match up very evenly when it comes to starting pitching. I'm blown away by the talent that the Brewers have overall and moving forward. I know you said about Houston being back. I really don't think the Brewers are going to go. They're going to be a problem for the Cubs for a while. But, the Cardinals are tough, obviously, as we saw for most of the year. It's a tough division, so they're going to have to stay healthy. They're going to probably have to make a couple moves. They're another team, I think, that they need to go get another lefty reliever. You can't just rely on Josh Hader all the time to be your only lefty. Mm-hmm. I don't think that really works. But he is impressive, man. Josh Hader is impressive, and I can't believe the Orioles traded him for Bud Norris. But that's another story for another day.
Bud.
Big Bud, but no, I like the future of the Brewers. Honestly, I really do. And I know we talked about it. You had a Jonathan Scope who was like our all-star in Baltimore, sitting on the bench, and he went 0 for 12 or something, I think, in the thing. And so that just shows you the difference in level of talent between bad teams and good teams. So it'll be interesting to me to see what they do with Moustakas leaving. Does that move Shaw back to third, and then Scope becomes a starter at second base next year? And there's a couple of variables for their team, but overall, you got to like the moxie, the experience they got this year. They kind of remind me of, per se, like the Royals, who had knocked on the door, came up a hair short, and then came right back the next year and then, capitalized on it. You know what I mean? So I see a little bit of similarities between those two teams, honestly, with that. And I wish baseball could just find a way, because the crowd in Milwaukee, home field advantage is a real thing. Real thing, you know what I mean? And I think, and one real quick thing else is, I really truly believe Christian Yelich defined himself as the MVP.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely,
hands down, he's the MVP of the National League at this point.
Under pressure, all the above.
Yeah, I mean,
he performs when needed.
And as Mookie Betts, I mean, I think he probably defined himself as the MVP of the American League. I know JD Martinez had a great year, but when you're talking about a guy who does it defensively and offensively, I think those two guys, through what we've seen so far, hands down, just made the decisions very, very easy.
Let's stay on that note for a second, because two things you just brought up. You brought up Betts and Martinez, and also you had mentioned the fact that what you like about with the National League game, with having your pitcher bat and you got to set someone down. There's a situation now. So Game 3 will be in L.A. They want to keep JD in every single game. So.
Of course, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So now Betts, he played in the minor league. He was a second baseman. So do you think that's the move they'll make? According to Cora, you never really got an answer from it. So what do you think? What do you think happens in that situation?
I'll ask you this, because this is an easy one for me. Are you going to put Brock Holt? Who would you rather have in the lineup, Brock Holt or Mookie Betts and JD Martinez?
Mookie Betts and JD Martinez.
Would you rather have Ian Kinsler in the lineup or Mookie Betts and JD Martinez?
Mookie Betts.
Okay,
and JD
so
Martinez.
I mean, no matter what you do, the offensive production that those two guys provide, it's clearly outweighs whatever defense that Mookie Betts is going to give you. Honestly, it's going to be a game of bullpens anyway. Strikeouts are probably going to be through the roof, so every bit of offensive advantage is going to be magnified. It will be interesting to see, though, because that middle stretch is 3 games in a row. It's not just 2 games.
Right.
Since, the Red Sox got home field advantage, it's 3 games in a row you're talking about doing it in, not 2. It's not like you're going to start twice and then you get a break, and it's going to be 3 in a row. I think a lot of it's going to determine on how well Boston pitches. You know what I mean? From what I see and have seen of Mookie Betts, I think the guy, if Steve Pearce can play all over the field, he's another guy that could possibly play second base. If Mitch Moreland's healthy, the problem is the Dodgers have 3 lefty starters, Kershaw and Ryu and Hill. So that's the problem with Mitch Moreland. But if Steve Pearce can move around the diamond and play, Mookie Betts is athletic enough to play anywhere in baseball. Truly believe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that he's going to give you enough to where you get a lead early, then you make a defensive replacement when you get to that 7th, 8th inning, and go from there. So the question will come down to, when you make a defensive replacement, do you bring in Kinsler and Holt, and do you take Martinez out, or do you take a Benintendi out who doesn't have as good of an arm? What guy do you take out then at that point when you make that defensive replacement? So I'll be interested to see.
So that's where the tough decision is. It's not who's playing second.
How Alex Cora is going to handle the National League rules. And I get that you go through interleague play and you do it, but interleague play through 162 games doesn't matter as much as this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Game 3, 4, and 5
correct.
of the World Series.
And you saw what happened to like Girardi last year when you make a mistake in the playoffs. He's out the door. He's gone.
Yeah.
Basically over, a decision. So I will be. That's going to be something I'm going to be. Dave Roberts obviously has it down. He's been managing a National League for a couple years now. I'll be interested to see how Cora handles that double switch. When do you take your pitcher, your starter out? Because, like I said, they rely heavily on their starters to go far. So Chris Sale needs to pitch to his potential and get to the 6th inning. Price is going to have to pitch to the 6th inning. Eovaldi's looked like a superstar for them, honestly. So Mookie Betts can play second base. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't know if he's Gold Glove Mookie Betts at second base, but he's definitely talented enough to handle the pressure and playing there, I believe.
You see, I knew your answer, but I just want to hear you talk about it.
Like I said, to me, it's one of those things that Mookie Betts is he's so good that he can play anywhere. There's no denying.
That's why I like asking you those questions, because you got the coach's mentality. I do not.
Yeah.
So I like to hear that little chess game in your head. So.
He's a 4, 5, 6 wins above replacement defensive player in right field. I'm sure he would be, if he played second base he came up as a second baseman. The only reason he's not playing second base any longer was because they had Dustin Pedroia, who was kind of the cornerstone of the franchise. And
right.
If I know anything at the level of major leagues, the photos just leaked today of him taking. I bet this has been something that he's worked on through batting practice sessions and all of this for a while now at this point, just in case this needs to happen. You know what I mean? This isn't just something you do. They've probably worked on this when the cameras aren't around, when the crew, when TV isn't around, reporters aren't. I'm sure he's probably taking ground balls there consistently over the course of, the past couple months.
I have another thing I want to talk about there. And I've actually talked to a few people about this, and I hear a lot of Machado haters out there. Can
you blame him?
I've seen him called a dirty player, and then I'm not sure if you heard what he said when they interviewed him after the win last night. Basically, he got the last laugh. He said they always boo the best, which is true. I want your thought process on this, because we've talked about a couple players like this before. We talked about Bryce Harper. He's got an attitude. He's a cocky dude, but he's got, usually has what it takes to back all that up. Manny Machado, my answer to this to a couple of people was, you know what? You need one of those players on the team sometimes, whether you like it or not. I still think baseball needs that player. And I mean, it's his first World Series. Congratulations to him. I'm happy he made it. He's going to the World Series. I think he's going to do well. I think it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be fun to watch. I don't know. I mean, you got an attitude. He's always had an attitude.
Pete Rose, he is not, my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for people, he's not that guy.
Right.
The problem is, you start looking at things. You go back to the Donaldson thing years ago when Donaldson was with Oakland, and then he throws the bat down the first base or down the third base line. That was ridiculous. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The whole thing with Boston the other year, where he got thrown out at the head, he acted like an immature guy. There. Then you fast forward to this, and there's a couple, suspect calls sliding in the second base. One got overturned, called the guy out at first base because of the slide. I don't think the slide's bad when you stick your arm out to hit the guy. Is the intent to injure? Probably not. The intent is not to injure, but the optics of it. And the problem is we live a life in slow motion now. HD, nothing is missed. Just like the thing at first base that happened last week. Was it completely on purpose? I don't know if it was completely on purpose. It doesn't look good in slow motion. The positive out of it was, thank God he didn't come down and step on the back of the guy's ankle and break it like that happened the other year to the pitcher covering first base, on an accident. Because those things do happen. But as a general manager, is this the type of guy you want to invest $300 million plus in?
Right.
Is he going to get suspended? Is he going to get thrown at? Is he going to get injured playing shortstop because somebody's going to slide in on him like that? Things like this have a way of getting worked out at some point. It might not happen next week. It might happen 6 months from now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Players don't ever forget. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I think Manny still has a little bit of immaturity when it comes to playing. I think what bothers me the most about anything that's happened was the statement, not the one you talked about, they always boo the best. That's true. Barry Bonds got booed all the time.
Right.
That's part of the game. It's part of Mike Trout. Everybody loves him. But there's places I'm sure he gets booed at. You go to Seattle, I'm sure they probably, or something like that, a rivalry game. But when he says, I'm not Johnny Hustle, that's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
That there, to me, that starts talking about the type of character. That starts talking about the mentality of the type of player. Andrew McCutchen's digging out ground balls. Mike Trout's digging out ground balls. Mm-hmm. I get that you're frustrated at times and you may not sprint and do that hard 90 that coaches want, especially at the high school, college level. But for you to blatantly come out and say that's not my cup of tea, I'm not going to be known for Johnny Hustle, that to me says a lot more about Manny Machado than the other stuff. That there really is something. And I've watched it for years. There's been balls hit to right field, Camden Yards that he should have scored from first base on, and he's not hustling. Balls in the gap that are a close play at second because he thinks he hit a home run. Those things. It's kind of like Altuve had one the other night where he hit that fly ball to left field. Everybody thought it was gone. It hit the top of the wall. We barely got into second base. I get that's going to happen once in a while, but like I said, out of anything that's happened in a long answer to you,
I like your long answers.
I have a hard time investing $300-some million. Manny Machado is a top 5 player in baseball. Easily, when he's healthy, he's a top 5 player in baseball.
Bottom 5 haircut.
Bottom 5, all of them. Every one of them that he's had this year. Those are terrible. And his clothing wardrobe is about the same, if you ask me. But that's just me. But in today's market, he should get paid Giancarlo Stanton or more money because of the talent. He should get paid Mike Trout money because of the talent. But I think that between what he's doing and what he said, you start shrinking that pool of people who want to spend that money. But he probably has the biggest advantage heading into this World Series. How many at-bats has he taken against Chris Sale and David Price over the years from being in the American League East? And I know Sale just ended up with the Red Sox last year, but man, he's got a lot of familiarity with that entire, and he's done some damage.
I didn't even think about
against the Red Sox over the years, my friend. I mean, he's really had some games against them.
Yep.
So here's another one of those plays that people don't forget. There's still some probably bad blood from some of those guys that are in that dugout. Joe Kelly, I have no doubt in my mind, hit Alex Bregman on purpose with that one pitch just to send a message. That's the kind of guy. Joe Kelly will have no problems throwing at Manny Machado. Again, if he takes a slide into second base, you best believe Joe Kelly will have no problems hitting him. And then what?
This is exciting.
So that's the one thing about Machado. I think that out of anybody, he could be your MVP if the Dodgers go on to win it, because I think if he can have a big series, the Dodgers are going to thrive.
Here we go. This is, we always make way too early predictions. Since we're talking about Machado, what do you think about him going to the Yankees Do you think they'd pick him up?
For 1 year? I mean, I guess you got to assume that Didi's going to get healthy. Mm-hmm. He's cost controlled. I mean, the Yankees need pitching. They don't need a shortstop. Do they need a short-term solution? They do, obviously. But they do have Torres. They do have, Andahar. I'm sure that they can go out and maybe they sign Moustakas on a 1-year deal to play third and one of those guys plays short. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's other options without spending $300 million. Obviously, I guess you add a bat like that to the lineup, that's a huge deal. But I think the Yankees need to invest in their pitching if they want to take the next step. I mean, I think they need to take a little bit, too, of the Boston mold. Boston hits a lot of home runs, but they hit for a good average. They don't strike out a lot. The Yankees kind of have big power, strike out a lot. I think that the Yankees need to find some higher on-base percentage guys. I think that Manny Machado is not one of those people. You know, he's a big power guy. He's going to hit 270, maybe 290, somewhere in the middle of that. You know, as we saw at the beginning of the year, he hit, 230 for the Orioles? But I don't think that that's wise to spend that much money when that's not your biggest need. Well, unless they give him a couple opt-outs, which then maybe it's only a 2-3 year deal and he opts out and gets another huge deal.
Shout out to Vinny on Instagram. He also thinks that Machado is a dirty player. We heard you, buddy. All right, cool. Well, do you have anything else you want to cover before we start winding this down?
I just wonder what you think about Bregman. Is he one of those that's too cocky, too confident?
No.
No? I don't think so.
I love him. This is why. Because we've talked about it before. There's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. I think what you might see as being cocky, I think it's him having fun. So that's the difference. Because there are some players, which we'll keep Machado in this. Machado's great. You know, he's a great player. But he's got a cockiness about him. Bregman, on the other hand, he can afford to have that cockiness if he wants to, but I think that he's just confident in himself. He's got, on and off the field, he's got good composure. He's funny. He likes to show his true colors, which I think is great. And he shows that when he hits his home runs, you know, he goes to the dugout and does his thing. I think he's a confident player, and I think he is allowed to get that little extra edge because I think he's a class act too. I was watching this, and Alex Bregman has probably become my favorite player in baseball. Just watching him over the past month or so become the true face of that franchise, I believe, at this point. His defense in that series was outstanding. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, he came up as a LSU shortstop, you know, in the heart of the SEC. He was a tremendous prospect when they got him. And here's something else I just wanted you to think about. Can you imagine if the Astros would have never cut J.D. Martinez? Think about that. And that colossal mistake. I guess you can't say it's colossal. You know what I mean? It's no different than the Orioles trading Hader for Bud Norris. But, but for me, Bregman, you're right. He's not Bautista in your face, bat flipping, standing at the home plate, admiring us. He's in the dugout celebrating with his teammates as a group. And that's what I think. This is what bugs me about baseball. Not bugs me, but it just happens. It happens to football teams all the time. And it happened to my Ravens. It'll happen to your Eagles here. You have a good run. You build that core group of guys. It's happened to our Orioles, right? Yeah. Had a good group. The Royals just went through it. The Indians are probably about to go through it. Houston at some point is going to go through it. When you have a core group of guys that are having that much fun playing together, you can't wait to turn the TV on and watch it. You know, you can't wait to get to the game and see it because it's infectious. It's exciting. It's everything we love about the sport itself. I mean, I'm not an Astros fan, but I'm becoming an Astros fan. Anytime they're ever on TV, I cannot wait to watch them play because they have so much fun as a group. When you start looking at Altuve, Springer, Bregman, Gonzalez, Tony Kemp, all those guys, just go down the list. They're having so much fun as a collective group, and they are all Bregman's confidence that some people might call cocky just wears off on that entire team. You know what I mean? And I think they all feed off of it. They all thrive off it. I think Altuve was that guy for a little while for them. And maybe George Springer was that guy last year. It's no different than Clayton Kershaw. When he takes the mound,
that Dodgers team just expects to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When Bumgarner would take the ball, go to the mound, the Giants expect to win. You know, Randy Johnson, that intimidating people. It just those types of players, when you play at that level that consistently, it just rubs. It's no different than Mookie Betts, JD Martin. That stuff just rubs off when the guys are around you, and it's infectious. It's exciting to see.
It's infectious for not only the team but everyone who's watching. Kind of the same reason with me with Boston this year. I never would have ever wanted to admit that I was enjoying watching Boston play as an Orioles fan. But I fell in love with that team this year. I mean,
good.
even the Yankees too. The Yankees
They're
are
good.
fun. Between the two studs with Stanton, and we had Judge over there and a bunch of other players that we didn't really talk about in the beginning of the season because they were just kind of off to the side. And then this year, we're starting to talk about them a good bit. But it was fun to watch. But the Astros, absolutely, that infectious feeling. More teams need to have that. Obviously, if you're not winning, it's not as fun. You don't really have the you don't have that
mojo.
desire to
Yes.
put that infectious feeling out there. But
And just to jump off that real quick before we move on, the commercial that they just had with Ken Griffey Jr. that was out there in the let the kids play.
Let the kids play.
Dude, whoever came up with that is brilliant. I mean,
Brilliant.
that right there, it just sums up the whole season for me. And the talent across that's the playoffs. Let the kids play because you have your veterans in Verlander and the graybeards. You know what I mean? But there's so many young guys, and they really are just kind of kids, and it's so awesome to see. And then you got Ken Griffey Jr., the kid. To come out and say it. That just right there highlighted the entire postseason and just sums it all up in a way. And it's awesome. And I wish the game of baseball could be like this for 106. I guess it can't be because we'd all pass out from excitement. But this stretch has just been incredible. It's like playoff hockey. It's incredible. So Chris Sale's taking the mound on game one. The Dodgers, obviously, I don't know if it was smart to bring Kershaw out of the pen for one inning. I don't know who they're going to announce. I guess they'll probably Monday announce their starters for the series. So it'll be interesting to see where these guys slot up and, at least for game one and game two until they get to L.A. But, I'll be Chris Sale coming back from food poisoning. I guess the extra rest probably did him some good. We'll see. Hopefully his arm's healthy.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Someone poisoned him.
It didn't happen in New York. So, I don't think the conspiracy should be too high.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, let's do this real quick. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this or not, but we started this podcast the very first week of baseball this year. And here we are. We've been talking about the World Series, I think, since episode 2. We made our predictions, our picks, and really had no clue what we were going to see this year. Obviously, in baseball, you don't normally see that. But we had an idea of who could have, but it always messes with us. But throughout this time, we've had tons of episodes. We've talked to a lot of people. I thought this would be a cool idea for this episode to ask the question, since we're about to hit the World Series, what was your favorite memory so far? It could be of the season. It could be of us doing this podcast, somebody we interviewed, a nugget of information that you got from somebody. I'm going to put that on you. What do you think?
Man, I'll tell you, my favorite part of this podcast, honestly, when we started out, we were just going to talk baseball and nothing but baseball, I guess. But the evolution of where we started to where we are now has been tremendous in a way. And probably the highlight of this podcast wasn't even something we produced and put out, really. It was when we got to interview Megan King and our daughters got to talk to her. Because, the whole thing we wanted to do once we started doing interviews was connect people, parents, coaches, teenagers, college kids with information from relevant people, to connect them to the best information that we could get a hold of. And for us to allow our daughters to talk to probably one of the most influential women in the game of softball right now, the most current, you know what I mean? After what she did and how impressive and how dominant that was, for us to be able to do this and then have our daughters have that connection, to me, is probably the highlight of this podcast. And I hope that some of the other people we've interviewed, we have rubbed off on some of the people that listen to it as well, because, the information we've gotten has been tremendous. It's changed my thought process as a coach. It's changed my thought process as a dad as well. So hopefully, that just the connections for me have been the most important thing that we've made. And like I said, that moment there where our daughters could talk to her and what she accomplished and just get advice from, it'd have been like getting advice from Cal Ripken or Ken Griffey, you know what I mean? So that right there, Dan, for me was probably number one. What was number one for you there, buddy?
Well, I liked what you said there because that's really cool. Like the people that we've talked to, and we've met so many people that we never would have even thought we'd ever have a chance to talk to. And we got so much good information from them. What's nice is we're going to get an opportunity to hopefully meet almost everybody that we talked to this year in December when we go to the conference. But the coolest thing that happened, and my biggest memory, was right after we had our first interview. We interviewed Kyle Hall, which that was just such a relief because we were just like, how we're going to do this interviewing thing. We didn't know how it was going to work. We didn't know if it was going to sound good. So big shout out to Kyle Hall. Thank you so much for doing that first interview for us because that was great. And I learned so much more about Kyle than I already knew because I've known Kyle for a few years. But after that, it kind of gave us the confidence. And then we reached out to, with the help of your dad, reached out to Bill Swaggerty. The Bill Swaggerty interview, I was nervous. I was so nervous about that because this is a guy that was on the '83 World Series team of our favorite baseball team. And I'm not going to name drop just because he hasn't come on our show yet, but I will tell you, I have it screenshotted in my phone. I have 2 text messages, one from Bill Swaggerty, who was on the '83 team, and another very, 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 very well-known Oriole from that World Series, very well known. I had Bill and him back to back in my text messages, and it was after they responded to me. That was the coolest thing ever. And I remember I was pretty much jumping around in my kitchen, and I could not believe it. You remember we're just high-fiving each other nonstop. It was the coolest thing ever.
Because how else would that happen?
And that other player, we'll get him on the show eventually. It's been a tough year for him. So with the Orioles doing what they've done this past year, so we'll give him a break. Maybe we'll hit him up in the wintertime.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I can't thank the fans for their feedback, for tuning in, accepting us into the softball community. Even Melissa from Softball Lifestyle 101, tremendous support. Appreciate that. Taylor Backspin T was another big deal. Riley Tincher got his book here. Check it out. That was probably one of the more powerful moments of the podcast as well. So just a few things right there that I rattled off in my head that I was thinking of while you were talking, Dan. But it's been a great ride, a great roller coaster. And now that we're back in business with the computer and everything else, I'm excited to get into the off season here and really hopefully grind out a few more really, really good interviews before the holidays, and hopefully connect people, like I said, to more good information that they can use over this off season to get ready for next spring.
Hell yeah. Sounds good. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode, guys. Thanks for sticking around and coming back and checking us out. We're going to make sure that we get this out every single week for you guys. And if we have an issue like that happen again, we'll keep you updated.
We should be good to go thanks to, what's his name again? Who helped us out?
Oh, Miles.
Miles at Apple. Thank you for all you did for us here, buddy, with this computer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's a wrap for this episode. So, as always, make sure you check us out on all social media. I almost forgot what we say at the end there.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Check us out on all social media at Going Yard Podcast and on Twitter at Going Yard and the number 2.
Yes, if you like this episode, as hopefully you always have, follow, subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, and Google Play. Leave us a 5-star review if you could. Check out our link tree. We also got some great promo, GYP 10, Baseball Lifestyle 101, and B-Ram Sports. You can get 10% off your purchases there and support the podcast. Also, holidays are coming up. You're looking for a good custom wood bat for your son, or even softball for your daughter, or that coach in your family, reach
Someone needs a fungo.
Somebody needs a fungo, you know what I mean? So reach out to us. Richie Bats, we can help you out. Get a nice piece for the holidays as a gift.
That's right. So that's a wrap for this episode. So from all of us here at the Going Yard Podcast, I'm Dan.
And I'm Tyler. See ya.
Later.